Hey everyone, it's the Angry Honey Badger, and it's time for another episode of League Talks. If you have a question for a future League Talk, don't forget that you can submit them to me either by emailing me at angryhoneybadger@hotmail.com or sending me a private message on YouTube. The game footage in the back is a ranked game of me playing as Caitlyn, and yeah, the other team apparently was not doing good, and this game ends very quickly. So, that's what's going on in the background, so watch some of that while you listen to this. A couple questions this week. First, we have a message from Aaron. He says, "Hey, Angry Honey Badger, which class or role would you say is better for newer or semi-experienced people to get into, and with what champs? I.e., examples of jungler, tank, support, carry, etc." I personally think that it's good for newer players or people who are just somewhat new to the game. I think it's smart for them to kind of play champions that aren't skill shot based. Some of these would include, obviously, don't play Ezreal. A lot of people ask me for an Ezreal build. I don't play much Ezreal. In fact, I don't think I even own him. I don't play him that often. I think he's a good champ, but I just don't have him, and so I don't play him often. Then some other champions. Ari's got a couple little skill shotty things. I don't know. I think skill shot champions, for the most part, you kind of need to avoid a little bit. Or champions that have, I don't want to say tough combos, because none of them are really over the top hard, as long as you just kind of figure out them out. But there's definitely easier champions than others. Some champions I would suggest for people to play would be tanky / tanky bruiser champions if they want to be doing anything melee wise. The reason why I pick champions that are like that, it's mostly because they can withstand decent damage while they're in a fight, and you can put out decent damage. And it feels more rewarding to a newer player to at least be able to do something rather than die. Because if you pick somebody like a Kali and you cannot do any of her stuff in the correct order, or if you just get blown up and you don't know how her kit works completely, it's not going to be rewarding. You're probably not going to do much damage. So you might want to save her for when you're more used to the game and a little more comfortable to try other champions that are more like that. Assassins can kind of be another type to avoid, just because you need to do their stuff correctly, and whether or not you're doing it all correctly, you at least need to take chances with assassins for the most part. There's lots of tower diving with assassins sometimes, or you just got to stick your neck out occasionally with an assassin, and that might not be as rewarding for a newer character. So, champions that are a bit tanky that I would suggest that you would start with, as I said in League Talks episode 1, champions such as Garen would be great, and he's getting reworked, and his kit should actually be a little bit better for late game, so he's going to be even stronger choice for that. Other champions like that might be decent. Malphite's really not too bad. His rock locks on, his ultimate pops everybody up in the air. He's really tanky. He does do decent damage. Other champions that might be decent, if you slowly want to work your way into some certain small skill shotty type stuff, Olaf, because you can practice with his axe on throwing it and all that fun stuff. I know a few kids who just were not a fan of the skill shot champs, but just kind of tanky bruisers. Jax would be another good one. You can leap to everyone. You just have to lock onto your target just by leaping. Nothing too tough there, and just get your spin up. So just some of those champions, obviously, just like I said, skill shot champions and champions that are assassins seem to be the hardest. Another role that's pretty easy to play would also be considered, in my opinion, carries, or at least some of the carries. Some of the simple AD carries, I think anybody can probably play Graves, Ashe, or Caitlyn pretty fine. There's nothing too tough about them. You just figure out their couple little things. Ashe's ult is kind of a skill shot, but once again, it's got a pretty forgiving, stun on it. So for the most part, I think those are some of the easier carries to play if you're new. And carries can be rewarding. You stay back. You just do the damage you want. So you just got to learn how to stay in the fight when you need to fight and when you need to run. Or how to just position yourself. That's kind of the hardest thing with carries. But if you can figure that out, carries are a pretty good way to get into the game. As for support champions, the main thing, if you're new to the game, you might not know, but you just shouldn't be creep scoring or killing creeps as a support if you've got an AD bottom. Now, the meta in low-ranked play, as I've seen, it doesn't always mean you have an AD carry bottom and a support. So you're probably not going to see that. So as for support champions, it's a little bit tough to say play them early. You can, but you might not be building them completely right for future use. But for the most part, you can play probably any of the carries too. They're decently forgiving. You just might not do any of the damage that you want to. So for the most part, I'd say tanky bruisers and a few of those AD carries I mentioned are probably great places to start. Avoid certain assassins and certain skill shot champions, and you should be pretty good to go. The next question I received for League Talk states, who is your favorite jungle and do you prefer jungling over laning? For the most part, I don't prefer jungling over laning. I like laning for a few different reasons. I used to make fun of junglers way back in the day because down at lower level play, at least when I was lower level, most of the junglers that I had on my team only jungled and never ganked. So I didn't really like junglers because I was like, cool, you kill stuff and you never come help lanes. I know you need to come gank, so come and gank, but none of them were ganking. So I kind of was turned off to jungling early. But if you know people who can do it correctly, after I saw a few people doing it correctly, that made me want to jungle more. So yes, more so lately, I'm completely fine with jungling, and sometimes I like doing it, especially if I'm with a group of friends or with some people who aren't comfortable with it. I do think it's important that everybody learn how to jungle. It's really not that tough to kill stuff in the jungle. I know some people are afraid of dying, but since they nerfed the jungle about half a year ago, there's really no problem with dying in the jungle now. But for the most part, I do like laning a little bit more. I'm pretty strong in lane in just about any lane I choose to go in, depending on what champion I'm obviously with and who I'm against. But I'm really comfortable at being in lane. Even if I get forced out, let's say I'm in top lane, and they choose a top that counters me incredibly well, I know not to feed. I know to get the farm I can, I know to stay close to get the experience I can, and I know to address this by having my mid come gank and having my jungler come help and try to gank too to relieve some of the pressure. But I know not to try to just act like I can stay as ahead or with them if they're going to be able to just murder me in the top lane. I know to give them a little bit of room just so I stay safe and so I don't feed them kills. If they get a little more creep score, that will happen. But for the most part, I usually typically do quite well in laning, so I actually like laning a little bit more than jungling. But I do sometimes just want to go in the jungle with some of my favorite champs and do some of that. As for my favorite jungler, oh, I don't know if I could say I have a favorite, but I'll give you probably my top two. It's going to be probably Trundle and Jax. I know a lot of people like to play Jax in the top lane. He is a good top laner. And Trundle lately has been pretty good. He counters a handful of people, not too bad too. But Jax I like as a jungler because his jungle is pretty quick. He doesn't take much damage doing it. And he's got strong ganks because he can leap strike to a person and then stun them. So he's pretty good for ganks and he does good damage that way too. As for Trundle, as I've always said, and which I've probably beat to death a few times already, I think Trundle's underrated. He's a lot stronger than people think he is if he's played correctly. His ganks are pretty strong. I know a lot of people that I know typically like Udyr in the jungle. I need to play a little bit more of him. I have done him, and he seemed decent, but I just haven't done as much as I want to, so I'm going to do some more playing with him. As for Warwick, I have played a handful of Warwick in the jungle. A lot of people like Warwick early on in the game because he's got a pretty simple kit for the most part. It's not too challenging, but to me, he's just really boring in the jungle. You don't do anything really. I mean, and his ganks are best at level 6. You can gank before, but, you know, they're not as strong as his level 6 ganks. So he is a little bit boring, in my opinion, for jungling. So for my top picks in the jungle, probably is going to be Trundle and Jax. The next question comes from Axe Mafia. He asks, do you think skins are unnecessary and a waste of money? Just straight up forward, no. I don't think they're a waste of money. And I don't think that they're unnecessary. No, well, obviously you don't need them. So in that case, yeah, they're unnecessary. But I think it's a nice little thing you can buy in the game, obviously, to make your champion look a little cooler, a little bit more unique to you or to your preference. And, you know, it shows maybe you like that champion. So now buying a skin doesn't mean that you're professional with champions. I've seen people, you know, buy skins and they just buy them because they're cool. And I know some people buy lots of skins. But a waste of money, I would say no for a few reasons. One of them being it supports Riot, who releases League for free. And for that reason alone, I would suggest to everybody maybe buying a couple skins if you enjoy this game. I mean, that's why I buy some skins in the game. It's to support Riot and support them with League of Legends. How do you think we keep getting new content and patches every month and new characters? It's because they continue to grow through the support from the community of buying skins, buying IP boosts, RP boosts, all types of stuff. So, yeah, no, they're not unnecessary at all. It's just a great way, actually, to support Riot if you enjoy the game that they've made. Riot has the best free-to-play system for gaming, in my opinion. There's no other game that does free-to-play better. Mostly because when you buy something in League of Legends using real money, it doesn't affect the in-game gameplay. there's nothing you can buy that puts you ahead of the other team in any way, really. Yeah, now you can say IP boosts and RP boosts can maybe get you to newer champions, or get you to different rune pages faster so you can buy more runes, or you can buy experience boosts to get to level 30, but none of that really puts you ahead while you're in the game. Everybody can still unlock everything technically at the same rate. So, as for that stuff, it doesn't really help you, and in some ways I think it actually can hurt you. I would honestly suggest never buying an experience boost unless it's a second account for some odd reason you have a troll account or something. But for people I know who have boosted their way up to level 30, it's never really helpful for them to do that, especially if they're newer to the game, because if they boost all the way up to 30 and they get there and they only have about 40, 50, 60 wins or something, they jump into a rank game, they're probably going to get slaughtered a little bit if, you know, because they probably still haven't seen every single champion or understand how everything completely works. You can constantly get better at this game regardless of how many games you've played. There's always room for learning more. So I know people who have boosted their way up to level 30, and that really doesn't help them out in the long run. It's the people who take their time to get to level 30, and they learn as much as they can on the way there, because they're playing against people closer to their skill the whole way there, because they're leveling up equally with all those people. And that's the most important way, in my opinion, for you to level up. So, you know, I know this kind of goes off and away from our skins unnecessary and a waste of money. No, I think any of the ways you purchase anything in the game supports League of Legends and supports Riot Games. It's obviously nice of you to do that. Now, obviously, you don't need to go out and buy every single skin. That would be crazy and cost tons of money. And I know some people buy champions. I don't really buy champions with RP. I don't want to, because they're not really that cheap, in my opinion. But if I really want one, maybe I will. So, no, it's not a waste of money. It's a great way to reward your players, really, too, by making some really unique fan art and some skins and cool stuff for certain champions that everybody likes. So it kind of is a win-win situation, in my opinion. You support Riot, and they give you something kind of cool back. That's going to wrap up this episode of League Talks. If you have a future League Talks question, please email them to me at angryhoneybadger@hotmail.com, or send them to me as a private message on YouTube and label the subject League Talks. Other than that, guys, I'll just see all of you in the next video.